He had his gun, so he just swung it open.
I start to notice that, the atmosphere feels a little bit weird.
First thing he seen was this 6.5 foot tall, broad shoulder, dark hair. That freaked him out.
We hadn't talked to her about like life and death and what any of that means. She's 3 years old,
So we turned around. Suddenly there's a whole tree falling across the road.
And she was describing to us that, there was a deceased person that she could see visually.
You're listening to Cryptid Clues, where we tackle the ever-expanding history and mystery of monsters and supernatural madness every Monday. You can find us at CryptidClues.ca for more information, or even check out exclusive content and support us at patreon.com/CryptidClues. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cryptid Clues. Skipping the redundancy of the intro, I'm your host, Reuben Olson, joined by your other also host, Taylor Field. Today, we're going to chat about some monkey chatter, go ape, and let ourselves be as bananas as possible with our comparisons. If you haven't shut off this episode yet due to my puns, sit tight because I'm going to stop talking and pass the mic to Taylor for the real talk.
That was amazing. To start us off with this episode, I figure it would be best to kind of narrow down some specifics, starting with primates. What falls into this category? Humans, or more specifically Homo sapiens, of course, are part of this group. Apes as well, monkeys as well, and even lemurs. Now, the easiest way to distinguish an ape from a monkey is to see if it has a tail. Almost all monkeys will have tails, while apes do not. You can also take into account the primate's body size and shape. Apes generally have larger and wider chests with more exposed faces. Now, just like humans, other members of the primate family communicate to satisfy their biological and social needs, such as staying clear from predators, interacting among group members, and maintaining a cohesive flow during travel with the group. This level of communication requires a wide range of, including but not limited to, signals, actions, and vocalizations to ensure proper coordination. Now, I reckon this could have a similar application to Sasquatch. And that is why I wanted to kind of introduce this as a topic, because there is a lot to be learned from our cousins in the primate family that, who knows, maybe it could fall into that application of a Sasquatch. So that's what we're talking about today. If we go beyond communication, we can see that humans and apes share all the same bones while differing in size and shape. We also share the same arrangement of internal organs. Now, while monkeys and lemurs, apes and all of us share a common ancestor over the last 60 million years, I believe. I'm not aiming to solve that missing link notion in this episode. That's thrown around a lot in relation to Bigfoot. That's not my objective today. My thought process was to point out, again, the similar characteristics between Homo sapiens, apes, and Sasquatch. Now, Reuben, we discussed this ages ago on an episode, but it always gets me excited to mention it again. And for those who may have missed it, in September of 2022, BBC posted an article regarding researchers who followed and studied chimpanzees in the Ugandan rainforest. It's worth noting that chimpanzees are great apes, along with bonobos. They are our closest living relatives, and again, closest living relatives in the animal kingdom, sharing 98.7% of our genetic blueprint. Now take that in for a second. 98.7% of our genetic blueprint. That is absolutely insane. It's believed that our close common ancestor existed 7 to 13 million years ago. However, I digress. These chimps that were followed for so long started to show a method of communication using signature rhythms sent over long distances, revealing who is where and what they are doing. This was executed by banging on exposed tree roots above the ground, and the researchers were able to identify the drumming signals and actually track specific chimpanzees' locations based on their drumming. So right out the gate, we can relate that to Sasquatch tree knocks, I would say. Now, we mentioned bonobos earlier. along with chimpanzees. You're smiling at me, and like,
I've just been sitting here so silent on mute.
It's not because I'm saying bonobos wrong. That's how I've always said it. So I
thought it was bonobos, but okay.
Bonobos.
How could people get mad at us for pronouncing like everything, and we can't even just pronounce regular English terms?
I know the word is very elusive. Bonobos.
And another episode where we're stuck on the pronunciation thing too. Sorry.
Yeah, apologies. We're working on it for you, the listeners. So we mentioned them earlier, along with chimpanzees. Now, Reuben, did you know that they actually signal hello and goodbye to begin and end their interactions with each other?
I did not know this.
You did not know that. Okay, cool. Because that is actually a thing based on this new study that was published. It explored the joint commitment between chimps to see if, like human beings, they establish these engaging actions. Now, how is this researched? Basically, teams examine signs of entry and exit phases during chimp and bonobo hangout times. Now, there are videos online associated with this research. It's truly incredible to watch. I would suggest checking it out because it's really neat to see them actually point out these certain entry and exit phases throughout their form of interaction with each other. But in summary, researchers examined over 1,200 natural play and grooming interactions between captive chimpanzees and bonobos. They discovered that the apes would regularly make eye contact alongside exhibiting other communicative signals when beginning and ending an interaction with another ape. This leads up to speculate that the signals represent the kind of entry and exit phases that humans employ when starting and ending an engagement with one another. And here's the cool kicker, though. Notable differences between the two ape species in their interactions. Bonobos performed hello and goodbye gestures in the form of hand-holding, touching, butting heads, and actually eye gazing prior to playing 90% of the time, compared to 69% of chimpanzees. They also executed these actions in the exit phase of their interactions, with bonobos at 92% and chimpanzees at 86%.
I mean, those are still really high percentages, but I find it quite interesting that there's a bit of a gap between the two species.
Yeah, absolutely. I should have pulled the genetic relation between the bonobos and chimpanzees. Unfortunately, I only pulled what humans are to chimpanzees, so I apologize. Lastly, bonobos appear to have different influence signals depending on the relationship with that specific individual. In short, this means when you're interacting with a good friend, for example, you are less formal, perhaps not communicating as politely as you would with one another. Great example. With Reuben, I was talking about writing taxes off. And I said, yeah, I can just, how did I put it? Like, I'm just write the tax off or something. I said it very less formal.
You didn't explain it at all and said it in an exaggerated way that only I would understand.
Yeah. So there's a good equivalency to this situation. Yeah. But anyways, Reuben, what do you think about all this?
I think, like I was saying a second ago there, it's interesting to note the difference between these species like this in terms of formality and manners. And I think it says a lot about the animal kingdom that the creatures we've presumed to lack languages or abilities to communicate socially have continually proven us wrong. And I have a feeling that in the future, we'll learn more about the in-depth nature and subtlety required to convey more to their language, as if we've only brushed the surface with bonobos and chimpanzees. And obviously, we already know gorillas are capable of the same kind of interaction, that both gorilla and chimpanzee have learned a limited amount of human sign language for cross-species communication, which I find quite interesting. But as far as their intelligence goes, it kind of brings me to Elon Musk's Neuralink that was tested on chimps. And Taylor, I'm sure you've seen that in passing here, but seeing a chimpanzee understand the concept of playing Pong and playing a video game competitively with the intent to win, using only its mind because it's no longer held back by the need for fine motor skills, kind of show us the level of intellect that these things have had since so long ago. Obviously, when it comes to varying species of apes, we've only kind of just scratched the surface. But before we resume talking about primates and apes again, I would like to bring up just intelligent language-capable species that we've observed so far. I've probably brought them up in past episodes as well, but crows, for instance, are insane with their social skills and language. There's an entire world of crow intellect that we've yet to understand. And it makes little birds and stuff look like dweebs in comparison. Every other bird just seems so dumb. An example of this is how crows will hold funerals for their recently passed away, circling around the body, bringing it gifts, and mourning in unison, all in a circle, before they all leave. They understand that concept of life and death, and when that one crow is passed, they all gather, mainly family members and friends of the family that actually come to that crow's funeral. Other random crows from other social circles, unless they've interacted, just don't attend. So moving on to dolphins and any whale ocean mammal. Ugh, I don't like them. They also possess completely human-like intellect that we have barely cracked the surface on, because they speak more so in a 3D imagery detailed sense using their, I want to say like sonar-like language, but carrying on from their actual language. Dolphin pods, with their intelligence, are known to punish and separate criminals that break dolphin laws that have been observed. And exiled dolphins will often group up and join each other. And scientists that have studied dolphins for some time and been examining their language and their social behavior will notice that these exiled criminal-like dolphins will find criminals from other groups that are also exiled, and they'll all go back to their pods and commit crimes together against their old dolphin groups. And it's not like a regular animal kingdom interaction where you see maybe one trying to take over and become the alpha. This is just for the sake of brutality. They're going into these criminal dolphin pods. These criminal dolphin pods are going into their old pods, and they're doing things like kidnapping young dolphins and playing soccer with them, which is disgusting. They're torturing them to death and using them like a toy, like it's a sport. And dolphins are some of the few ocean mammals that will hunt for sport, not for food. And then when it comes to other more detailed things that I kind of don't want to bring up in detail, criminal dolphin pods will also gang up on a female dolphin, fish, or even a human. There's a couple of known human cases for this, and they've used them to fulfill their needs, I guess I'll say. I'll kind of end that one there. You can kind of presume what I'm going to say from that. But the fact that dolphins are capable of being so disgusting, the fact that something without hands and feet but flippers possesses a concept of right and wrong, really makes me wonder how deep this goes in our fellow land animals like primates, apes, and monkeys. Obviously, if we've witnessed a lack of this understanding, but as soon as we jump into a concept like Sasquatch, supposedly even closer to us than chimpanzees, who's to say they don't possess a sense of right and wrong if they're a natural animal? Who's to say they don't just straight up have a fully detailed language?
You make great points on the fact that, yes, no limbs or anything like that, fins, flippers, and at the end of the day, that mentality, that cognitive alert, that self-awareness, all that degree of intelligence still exists there. And so it's funny how that applies to whatever outside shell that's encasing this mind. Like, it's
exactly
widespread.
Any more intelligence, and they'd be capable of generating ad breaks. Welcome back, everybody.
That was the Sierra Sounds, recorded by Ron Moorhead. We actually had Ron Moorhead guest on the show. Definitely go back in our feeds and check out that episode. Fantastic.
That was such a good time. That was a good time.
Yeah. So now, continuing on, we have the vocalizations, of course. When compared to humans, non-human primates have a small vocal repertoire that shows small forms of acoustic modification during development. So this does cause a slight bump in the road for language evolution and all that jazz, especially when it comes to researching and trying to see how their evolution, their development can kind of unfold. But in recent studies, It's suggested that both monkeys and apes can extensively modify their use of calls in different social contexts. Many of these vocalizations serve as a form of social interaction by reducing the uncertainty of the signaler's intentions and behavior. Again, not confirmed and is based solely on what recent research suggests. Now, just like the signals we mentioned before between bonobos and their specific individuals, chimpanzees also seem to exhibit alarm vocalizations in the face of danger to alert others, along with a different and somewhat more powerful call to warn specific individuals nearby that share a close relationship with the signaler. So again, you have that relation and that identification between these animals, just like humans do. For example, having a different ringtone for if Reuben were to give me a call on my cell phone. The same thing basically applies. On top of that, I was also reading into how it's kind of like a cried wolf scenario. Researchers would take speakers, they would record these specific calls, and they would play the calls over and over again. And while certain primates would execute, whether it be instinctive or whatnot, but they would execute certain escape maneuvers. If it was a call for a snake on the ground, then the primates would act a certain way at that. If it was a predator in the sky, then the primates would react to that. All very differently based on these specific calls placed over the speaker, which is very fascinating. But after a significant amount of time while they were playing these calls, funny enough, the primates would stop reacting to it. Again, like that boy who cried wolf situation. And I often have to wonder, okay, is this the case with Sasquatch? If they are trying to go out, they're trying to do the tree knocks, they're trying to play over the speakers or those fake calls, is that level of intelligence there to immediately cry, like, oh, identify, this person's crying wolf kind of a situation, like, oh, this is fake? I was curious what you think of that, Reuben.
I think you kind of know most of my thoughts on this kind of topic already, but if different pods of apes already do these warning signals and sounds, smack trees and whatnot, I think we can assume a more intelligent creature can and will do the same thing, and maybe even have more complex meaning behind it. It makes me wonder how complex they can formulate a response, like considering the vocals we often attribute to Sasquatch have been proven to possess sound outside the range of human hearing and understanding. There could be an entire layer to this sound that changes the meaning quite a bit. Imagine, if you will, if the words yes and no were actually both pronounced yes. But if you said it with an underlying bass that only your species could hear, it would then mean no. Now expand that concept throughout a language or a 26-letter alphabet, and you could theoretically cut verbal vocabulary in half and use half the amount of responses, half the amount of language, supplement everything with tone to mean different things. So this is assuming there's only two shifts to make for this difference, but with and without extra vocal range, imagine if there was many different layers that we've yet to understand, many different layers that tone could mean for animals even. We've already explored the idea of paralyzation and such in the vocal range as well in past episodes with like tiger roars and such. To hear one of those sounds in real life versus from a computer speaker really shows the difference of how it affects the human body. The fact that sound made by just a couple of species capable of producing it outside of our range affects us and instills us with a primal response and paralyzation effect means there's so much more to learn about audio that we're incapable of understanding yet. People often talk about how they feel a headache or stiffness when face to face with an upset Sasquatch, how they feel like they're being spoken to in their mind when it comes to Sasquatch and dogmen. With scientists deciding that older animals like dinosaurs may have been able to speak in rumbles we can't hear based on some kind of skeletal structure, what could it mean if a cryptid is capable of instilling not language but concepts through sound to convey its message? Just like going back to the dolphin language here, where they speak in like a sonar. They have the capability of relaying 3D imagery to other dolphins. Who's to say that audio tone and sound out of something like a Bigfoot couldn't do the same thing to a human, or from a dogman to a human, to convey not mind speak, but a tone that instills you with a concept.
I think you pretty much like hit that right on the head with it being like certain things that we can hear, sounds, and just certain species being able and capable of producing things that are outside of our range that can affect us. And again, we've talked in previous episodes about that and infrasound and everything like that. So there's so much more to explore on all of that. So absolutely fascinating. I think it's also interesting that, like humans, many non-human primates share so many similarities to us. And perhaps it's not interesting at all to most since we share such a close relationship with them. But for example, chimpanzees, I digress, our cousins live in large groups characterized by patterns of social behaviors like grooming, imitative and cooperative foraging, differentiated affiliative relationships, ritualized mating behavior, and competitive interaction structured by dominance. Like that's pretty similar in many aspects to the human race. You know, always trying to be the dominant one in class, and relationships and living in like repetitive scenarios in life. There's so many common similarities. So how do we apply this to Sasquatch?
I mean, when it comes to common similarities in our behavior, at least the primates don't try to 100% trophy runs on PlayStation games.
I mean, not yet. I mean, you plug them up to something like Chat GPT, maybe they can like excel and like, I don't know where I'm going with that.
Oh, that reminds me of an excellent Chat GPT topic for after the show that we can probably do an episode on.
Ooh, okay.
Remind me. You hear that, folks? If Taylor forgets to remind me after we quit recording, you have to get him in trouble for me.
I have a hunch that I feel like I know where you're going to steer with that, and I'm totally on board because I think there's definitely some real good stuff there. But anyways, I'll wait to hear you out after. So, I see three options. Sasquatch is completely biblical and interdimensional. All in one, the paranormal, the alien, everything is all just boom. Not natural to our planet Earth and thus irrelevant to my notion moving forward. Option 2. It's an evolved branch of humanoid primate type creature that did not evolve from the same common ancestor that Homo sapiens, apes, monkeys, and lemurs all did. Thus, it shares hardly any similarities to what we and our cousins all distinctively share. Then option 3. It's a broken, missing primate yet to be added into the mix of Homo sapien cousins that does share many, if not all, the attributes and mannerisms we humans and our cousins all like to express, or at least the intelligence that you see represented in the animals you mentioned prior, like dolphins and crows and all that sort of stuff. So, Reuben, what do you think?
I'm in the interdimensional / biblical camp with Bigfoot and most cryptids, I believe. The supernatural holds so many answers if you seek the truth, despite also being a convenient scapegoat and explain away for many things. It's kind of a double-edged sword in that sense. As we explore the crazy rabbit hole of quantum mechanics, I think some things about our reality and the supernatural becoming more and more clear. That being said, I accept the possibility that this is all wrong, and Bigfoot is just a smart ape or typical physical being, either partly biblical in the Nephilim sense or offshoot of human evolution. I do not believe that at this point in time that Bigfoot doesn't exist. There's just too much evidence on our end. I'm inclined to still be curious about the existence of things like Dogman, and more so leaning towards hoaxes for other cryptids outside the catch-all supernatural umbrella.
And there is definitely so much more to explore when it comes to the quantum mechanics, quantum realm, everything like that. There's so much going on there. And especially too, if like other cryptids, can actually tap into it and actually see about what limitations they have when it comes to quantum mechanics, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm. I recently saw an interesting explanation of quantum stuff using like fourth dimension terminology and how to describe it. As if you could linearly move from the third dimension to the fourth dimension, how would you see somebody? Like somebody who is two-dimensional sees things a little bit more like one-dimensional. Somebody who is third-dimensional can see things more two-dimensional quite easily. But fourth dimension being the concept of time as well. If you were able to see in the fourth dimension, it would be like you're able to observe an individual like a video slider where you could go back and forth in time and scrub and view any single moment. It all exists at once in that fourth dimension. Kind of off topic, random thought, because I've run out of notes at this point. So Taylor, I'm going to let you lead us off here.
No, I think definitely always worth noting when it comes to stuff like that. I guess just in closing, I think that while none of what we have really said in terms of Sasquatch can be declared as factual, I don't think really anything can be. What we just try to do, and we've done this with past episodes, we look at things that are evident with humans and, again, our cousins and things out in the animal kingdom, and we try to find those common ground attributions to Sasquatch in hopes that maybe it has some relevance. And I think when you look and examine how pieces of the puzzle kind of come together, particularly the tree knocks and recently discovering that they're banging on roots to send signals, that blew my mind the moment I read that last year. And I think that's I think at least what our cross-examinations maybe have a little bit of credibility. Maybe I'm too bold to say such a thing.
See, we enter the show with the mindset of that one poster that's in the X-Files. I want to believe. I think that about sums it up.
Well, and with that, we will end it there. So again, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Cryptid Clues. All the plugs down below. You know where to find us. So we will be back later. Thanks again for your time, Reuben.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.